Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our March onX Hunt 101. We're going to give it just a couple of minutes to let everyone get situated and get logged in. While we wait, we're just going to go over a couple of housekeeping items. Start off, my name's Jack. I'm going to be kind of leading the class tonight. I'm joined by Connor. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm on the customer service team here. If you ever reach out to ask any questions or need anything, probably going to get me or one of the guys that's helping with our Q&A tonight.
And that's a good point. If you have any questions, drop them in the Q&A feature down below. There's a chat box there as well. That's great for just chiming in, like, hey, it's Mark from Kentucky or wherever you're tuning in from. That's what the chat's for. We're just not able to monitor questions there as well as we are in the Q&A. So any questions you'd like us to answer, either in the Q&A feature itself or live on the air, please put them in there. If you do have questions that are pertaining like to your specific account, by that, I mean password issues, billing issues. Hey, when does my membership renew? Anything like that. We're not able to handle those types of questions in this kind of class setting. So those are best sent to help@onxmaps.com. That's going to be our regular customer support email. So that's a great spot to ask those types of questions. And, beyond this class, if you do have anything that comes up or any questions, shoot us an email. We respond to every email within like 24 business hours generally. So if you email us tonight, you can expect a response from somebody on the customer support team tomorrow. A couple other housekeeping items. Don't worry about any noises in the background. Your audio and video are off, so we can't see or hear you. So no worries there. This class is being recorded. So if you do have to dip out early or you want to go back and watch it at a later date, anything like that, we upload them to YouTube, and then we'll email you that YouTube link tomorrow so that you can go and find it. That email will come out tomorrow evening. It's set to send 24 hours after this class, so you'll get it tomorrow about this time. Any other housekeeping I'm forgetting?
Should be good.
Awesome. Well, let's get in. Looks like we got quite a few people joined already. Some of the agenda for today, what we're going to be talking about, we'll go over the different membership options within onX, what each of them is, what it costs, what it gets you, the differences between them. We'll talk about map layers, offline maps. So we had a lot of questions about, hey, how do I use this when I don't have service? That's where offline maps come in. We'll talk about map tools, so things like waypoints and the tracker, things like that. Talk about the My Location button, how to find yourself and how to orient yourself and how to use the compass mode. We'll go through our different base map and imagery options. We'll talk about performing a search, another common question we get of, how do I search for GPS coordinates or something like that? We'll run through all of that. And then at the end, we'll save some time for some questions and answers and then a giveaway. We're giving away some onX t-shirts at the end of the class, so make sure you stick around for that. So first off, why don't you run us through membership options?
Yeah. So for onX Hunt, there's 4 different membership levels that you can realistically be at, 3 of which are going to be paid memberships. That first unpaid one is a basic user level. So that's you don't have a membership for the app. You aren't going to have access to any of our layers, but you can still use the map itself. You'll be able to see the satellite imagery and the topographic map. Going up from there, you're going to be in our premium 1-state membership, and that one's going to be $30 per year. It gets you access to 1 state's data as well as all of our tools. So you'll be able to see private land, government land, hunting districts if those are in your state, and then any other like state layers that are there. From that, you've got a 2-state premium, exact same type of access as that premium 1-state. $45 per year, except you can just have 2 states preset on your account. And the last membership level is going to be our elite. So this is where you're going to get all of our features, anything new that we have coming out. And the biggest sell with that is you get access to all 50 states data and Canada. On top of that, there's a lot of extra benefits. Some we'll go through later tonight, like some different imagery options. We're also going to have a lot of our elite benefits. So that's discounts with industry partners. It's going to be like Bushnell, Vortex, companies like that. And then access to some research tools. So our hunt research tools for like draw odds, and then hunt reminder, make sure you know when you need to apply, and then like hunting pool for a little bit more knowledge on where you might want to hunt.
Awesome. So again, if you have any questions on those, do let us know. If any of that was confusing, we'll hopefully clear most of it up during the class today. Like Connor said, there's a few features within the app that are Elite exclusive. So we'll run through most of those. We won't be able to touch on everything. Some of it's beyond the scope of a one-on-one class. But like you said, some of those imagery options and everything we'll run through a little bit later on. So let's get into the actual app itself. I'm going to pull it up on my tablet here. Just give me one moment to share my screen. We're using Zoom here, so there's usually a bit of a lag with this. So I'll try to go slow within the app, but going from the app to Zoom and everything, it might look a little bit jumpy on your end. Apologies for that ahead of time. So there it goes. So this is the onX app on a mobile device. I'm on an iPad here. You're probably on an iPhone or an Android phone, or a correlating tablet. So if you do have it on your phone, it's a great idea to have it pulled up if you can. If you're watching us on a computer or something, obviously I understand if you're watching the Zoom through your phone, then you're probably not going to be able to do that. But if you do have the option, it's always great to follow along and learn that way. So this is what the app looks like. Once I download it and log in, you can see that blue dot in the middle there is my location. So the first thing we're going to jump into is our map layers. So if you go to the lower left-hand corner of the app screen, you see that little button there that says Hunt Map Layers. I'm going to tap on that, and that's going to open up that layer menu. This is really kind of the heart and soul of the onX app. This is what most people think of as our different layers, especially the ones that show land ownership. Everything in map layers is grouped into different folders or collections. Okay, we use those terms kind of interchangeably here. So I have a bunch of state folders. You can see I have Missouri and Montana currently turned on. And then there's a bunch of other folders that are more nationwide. So things like current conditions, land and access, road, trails and rec, trees, crops and cover, and the wildlife layers. We won't be able to get into all of those layer collections tonight. Otherwise, we're going to be here for 2-3 hours. There's so much stuff in there. We are going to go through the state layers, but those other nationwide ones, like I'll just open up current conditions. You can kind of get a sense. I have the active wildfire one turned on right now. These layers sometimes cause confusion because we have current conditions, the roads, trails, and rec. These are all nationwide. So even if you have a premium 1-state membership or a premium 2-state, you can still access these layers and turn them on, and they'll turn on throughout the United States for you. Okay, we do have a Canada folder as well for folks joining us north of the border. You're going to find all of your Canada data within that Canada folder. It's listed down below here. But sometimes people will be looking for a layer, some specific information, like the wildfires layer. And they'll say, hey, I'm looking for wildfires, but I don't see it in the California folder. It's because it's a nationwide layer, so it's not going to be listed under any single state folder. So that's a common source of confusion we sometimes hear. If you're looking for some data and you're not seeing it in your state folder, check one of those other ones like land and access, like roads, trails, and rec, etc. All right, so let's jump into a state layer, or a state folder, excuse me. We're located in Montana. That's where we're sitting right now in Missoula. So I'm going to pull up the Montana folder. Every state is going to look a little bit different, depending on different programs that state might have, as well as different data that the state makes available. So some state fish and game agencies provide layers like the Montana game distribution layer. We have a similar one for Colorado. There's a few states where we have something similar, but not every state. And that's just because of available data. Same thing with your like walk-in areas. So you see the Montana block management layer listed there. You're not going to see that for any other state because Montana is the only one that has block management. Your state might say something like walk-in access or plots or access yes. Those are all your state walk-in areas. Okay, but every state is going to have private lands, government lands, and possible access. And almost every state is going to have some form of hunting districts. Every state calls them something different. It might be game management units. It might be permit areas. It might be hunting zones. All right, so if you're not seeing hunting districts, it's probably called something else in your state. I think Illinois is still the only one. I think is the only state we don't have this layer for, because like their deer harvest and that is regulated more on by county. That's kind of their boundaries versus having units or districts like most other states do. So first things first, private lands, government lands. That's what brings most people into onX. I want to know where the government land or the public land is. I want to know where I can go hunting or camping. And I want to know the private land. I want to know where the boundaries of my land are. I want to know who owns that field, etc. So all of these layers can be turned on and off at any point. Okay, so if you're not seeing, I'll just zoom in here to show you what this looks like. Private lands are going to have an orange or red boundary around them with a name in the middle. You can see, right here in Missoula, all those city lots there. If you're not seeing that, that was the wrong button. If you're not seeing that, that private lands layer may have gotten turned off. So that's something to double check. Similarly with the government lands, I'll zoom out. Government lands are all color coded based on who the managing agency is. Is it Forest Service land? Is it a county land? Is it state land, BLM, etc. So you can see as I toggle that layer on and off, this land outside of town here, I can't really tell what it is. So if you're not seeing these layers on your map, first thing to do is double check your map layers and make sure those are turned on. Now, if you have an elite membership, you're not going to have all 50 states turned on all the time. It's a question we sometimes get. Hey, I upgraded to elite. Why don't I see land ownership in Missouri? When they previously had Nebraska or something. It's because you don't want all 50 turned on at once. It can cause some issues with loading. It's just a lot of data. So if you're not seeing this information for your state, I'm going to go back to my folder here. You can turn on and off states at any time with an elite membership. So if I scroll down, you see I have Missouri and Montana turned on currently. All the other ones are going to be listed alphabetically. So all you have to do, if I want to turn on Wyoming, for example, down there at the bottom, I tap on that switch, that button, and you can see now at the top, Wyoming's turned on, and I have my Wyoming folder listed there. So if you're not seeing something on the map, check your layers. And kind of the flip side of that coin, if you're ever looking at your map and you're like, man, I don't know what that coloration is. I don't know. I don't want this on my map. 9 times out of 10, it's a layer that's turned on. So go through your different layer folders and turn them off kind of one by one until you get that coloration, whatever you didn't want, until you get that removed. I'm going to stay in Wyoming here because this is one of the big states that we hear from when it comes to hunt areas, because Wyoming is kind of unique in that they break out their hunt areas by species more than just about any other state that I'm aware of. Most states will have different zones for, these are your deer zones, these are your turkey zones. They might have different waterfowl zones, things like that. Wyoming breaks out theirs by big game species more than like my home state of Montana, for example. So the common question we get is, hey, your guys' lines don't match Wyoming Game and Fish, what they have in their hunt planner, or your numbers are off. When that's the case, what's happening is they just have the wrong species selected. So we have elk turned on by default. Most states, it's going to be deer by default, because that's the most commonly hunted species in most states. In Montana, it's our deer and elk units. They're the same. So in Wyoming, we have elk turned on right now. If I'm applying for antelope, I need to turn on that antelope sublayer. So all I'm doing is I'm just tapping these different buttons here. You can only have one turned on at a time. Otherwise, your map's just going to be a mess of green lines showing those different districts. But if you've ever looked at the map and said, that doesn't look right, that's the wrong number for those hunt units, double check and make sure you've got the right one selected there. Close out of Wyoming. I'm going to go back to Montana. So layers that I always have turned on, private lands, government lands, almost always have hunting districts, possible access as well. And that possible access layer is private land that may be open. It's possible that it's open. That's why it's called possible access. Largely, these are going to be timber company lands or nonprofits like land trusts. Like the Nature Conservancy has a lot of land that's owned by the Nature Conservancy. You know, it's not public, but they allow public access to a lot of it. So that layer is a way for us to show, hey, this may be a spot you want to research more. Now, you do need to do your diligence. Check out with whether it's the timber company or Nature Conservancy or your local land trust. Oftentimes, your state fish and game department has information on these lands as well, just as far as, is there public access? What kind of public access? Sometimes it may be, yep, you can go, but it's non-motorized. Or you can go, but there's no camping, no campfires, no recreational shooting. They often have different restrictions there. But that's something to take a peek at, especially if you're in a state that maybe, or an area where you don't have a ton of public land. There might be some land that's open to you that you were unaware of previously. Similarly, that block management layer, I mentioned it earlier. A lot of states have these walk-in type programs. So in Montana, it's called block management. North Dakota, it's plots. I think Idaho is access, yes. They all call it something different, but it's private land that is open to public hunting. A lot of times they're walk-in only. Again, they usually have their own set of rules. Here's an example of one. This is what it looks like on the map. It's got a black border around it with red dots inside. So that's going to tell you where those are. And if I tap on it, I'm going to get more information about it. And that brings up a larger point. If you're ever looking at a map, if you're ever looking at onX and you want to know, hey, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this coloration on the land is. I don't know what this, little icon means. I want to know more about this trail, this walk-in area. Tapping on the map is the best way to get more information. That kind of opens all that up for you. So it's going to open up this card for me. It's private land, so it gives me the owner's name and their tax address, as well as the county they're in. That was a change we put in maybe only a year or two ago. A lot of states, when you register an animal, they want to know what county you harvested it in. So you can get that information really quickly if you're not intimately familiar, if you're traveling or something. But the block management area, to get more information about it, if I just scroll down a bit, I see this one's named Grass Valley. It gives me the open and close dates. So this is one that's open for the spring, for like spring turkey hunting. It's going to tell me it's a type 1, and then we'll link you out to the state website. So that's another great resource when you're looking at block management or walk-in areas, when you're looking at like U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service refuges, places like that. They often have more information available to you. We're limited on the space that we have in the app to show you all of that, but we will link you to kind of the authoritative website, to that source of truth, so that you can get more information there. What am I missing on layers?
That's pretty much it. Just to reemphasize one thing that he had said, layers do add information to the map. And one thing that we often hear from customers about is they'll call in and be like, oh, the satellite imagery is missing. It's just a paper map. There are some layers in there that substantially change how that map looks. The Forest Visitors map in Roads, Trails, and Rec is a really big one for that.
Mm-hmm.
I just take some time. If your map doesn't look quite right, do run through those layers and try toggling things off. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to be what it is. Just there's one extra layer turned on that might have been bumped by accident.
Another common one, I know we used to hear about it a lot, is our precipitation radar. So let me see. Here's some. Oh, look, it's raining on the Oregon coast. Who would have thought?
Big surprise.
So that's something we often hear from people's like, man, there's a bunch of different colored squares on my map. I don't know what it is. We'll kind of ask like, well, does it look kind of like a weather map? Yeah, it does. So that's the precipitation radar layer. So you can turn that on and off. That's another one. I think we used to hear about it a lot more than we do currently, but that was pretty common. So again, if you ever want to know what something is on the map, what a coloration is, what is this green here? Tap on it, and it's going to tell me national forest, right? What's this blue? Well, that's state land. What's this yellow? Bureau of Land Management. All right, so that's my 2 biggest tips. If you don't know what something is, tap on it and spend some time in the map layers menu. There's a lot of good information in there. We don't have the time to go through it all, but spend some time in there. There's nothing you can break. There's nothing that you can turn on that can't be turned off. So turn on the layers, touch all the buttons. You know, a buddy used to say, like, tap everything. That's the best way to learn how to use the app, is to just spend time in it and take a look at the different features. All right, let's move on. We talked about querying the map. Let's talk about offline maps. So this is a pretty common question we get from people is, well, where I hunt, there's no cell phone service. Can I still use onX? Yes, you can. It functions nearly identically to how it does when you're online. So first things first, I'm just going to zoom out. Pick a spot I've never been. Let's go here. Let's say I want to hunt in the wilderness area here. Probably not a lot of cell service. I haven't been there myself, but probably a pretty good hunch there. Pretty rugged country. So let's say this is kind of the general area I want to hunt. I'm going to go down into my menu bar along the bottom of my screen, and the farthest left one says offline maps. I'm going to tap on that. That's going to pull up a menu. Yours may not look like mine. I already have some maps saved on this device. So that's what all of those ones with the green, you know, dot next to them are. Those are previously saved maps. Yours might be blank. That's fine. Up at the top, there's a button that says new map. I'm going to tap on that. And then whatever is within this red box on my screen, that's going to be my offline map. That's the portion of the map that I'm going to download to my device so that I don't need cell service to pull up this information when I'm out in the field. I can still, just with one finger, I can kind of move this around. I can get it situated exactly how I want. I don't really need Wyoming because I'm only hunting in Montana. So I'm going to make that kind of the bottom portion of the map. And if you look down at the bottom, you can kind of see, I'll pull it up here. You've got 3 different options for map detail. And that's really getting to the resolution of the aerial imagery. So when you save a map, you do get all of our base maps, which we'll touch on here in a minute. You get our satellite imagery, you get our topographic map, and you get our hybrid map. So you don't have to save like 3 maps to get all 3 of those. It's done automatically for you. But what you might want to consider is how much detail of imagery do I need when I'm out there? By default, the medium detail map is going to be selected, and that's going to be around, it depends on your device, 20 to 30 miles wide. And then since most devices aren't a perfectly square screen, it's going to be like this one's 43 miles north to south. Yours is going to look a little bit different. It all kind of depends on your device, but that's the general size of those maps. If I go to high detail, you can see it shrinks it down quite a bit. So personally, I use the medium most of the time because I want to have that bigger area. It's, you know, 4 times the size or more than that even. So it's going to give you a little bit less detailed aerial imagery than the high detail one is, but personally, I don't notice much difference. It's pretty close. And I've never been out in the field and thought, man, I would have had that deer if I had a high detailed map. It's just not as big of an issue a lot of times for me personally. Times where I do use the high detailed map, places where I might be whitetail hunting and I have whitetail stands, deer stands set up, or duck lines, where I'm going to be more stationary. When I'm elk hunting, man, I don't know where the elk are going to be on any given day. I'm probably going to be moving around a lot. I want a bigger map. When I'm pronghorn hunting, upland hunting, I might be driving around a lot. Deer camp in northern Minnesota, I'm going to use the high detailed map because we know that's where we're going to be hunting, right? So kind of fit it to your preferences and your style of hunting. The low detail map, I'll just touch on quick. You can see it's quite large. That one does not have very crisp aerial imagery once you zoom in. The idea with this low detail map, most of us at the office use it kind of as a backup. Mm-hmm. I will save basically the whole state of Montana in these low detail maps because it's like half a dozen of them is all I have to save to fit the whole state of Montana in there. What it does give you is all the layers. So your private lands, your government lands, your hunting units. It'll give you the roads and trails and things like that. So if I'm hunting an area and I've got a bunch of my medium maps saved, and for whatever reason, I venture out of that area, at least I still have something to fall back on to keep myself legal, make sure I'm on the right road and so forth. But I'm not going to use that as my primary navigation. So let's go back to medium here. I'm going to zoom back in. Let's just say, all right, that's what I want to save. I recommend you name your map. I got to move that button. There we go. I'm just going to name this March test. This is just a test account here. Name it whatever makes sense to you, because once you have, I once had over like 200 maps saved on my personal account. You're not going to remember what each of one of those is for. And sometimes it's you're heading out hunting and, oh, do I have a map there? You can scroll through, and if they all just say the date and time, I don't remember where those all are. So I'll name it after, maybe it's a hunting unit, and I'll put the unit name in there. Maybe it's a river drainage, or maybe it's a mountain peak or a nearby town, or whatever makes sense to you. Give it a name and then hit save. That's going to start downloading that map. You can see it there chugging along. Might take a couple minutes, depends a little bit on your device and on your internet speed. But you can see I now have a green box on my map. That is going to show you where you have saved maps. So as I zoom out, you can see where I've saved them all previously. And if I go up here, you can see where I've put two of them side by side. You can save as many maps as your phone has storage for. Okay, we don't limit you within the app. If you have storage for 1,000 offline maps, go nuts. You can save 1,000 offline maps. I will often grid them together like this because I need a bigger area. I did that a couple of years ago when I drew my last pronghorn tag in eastern Montana. I saved, it was, a multi-unit tag. I saved all of the units that I could hunt in medium size maps. And back then our maps were like half this size. We did an upgrade to them. I think that was last year. So I sat there at my computer and saved a lot of maps. But that's something you can do. And we sometimes get that question of how do I choose which map, or how do I, you don't have to choose a map when you're offline. It's not like you need to tell the app, hey, load up this one, then load up this one. It's going to automatically do that for you once you go offline. So that brings up the other question we get is, how do I save my battery? What's the best practice for lengthening my battery life? You got a couple of options when you don't have cell service. You can just go into your offline maps menu and tap this button that says go offline. That's going to kind of basically turn off cell service to the app and tell the app, load up those offline maps. Don't try to upload, the imagery and the other information through the cell network. I basically never use that feature. When I'm out in the field and I either have basically 2 bars of service or less, it's not going to be enough to download all of that information via the cell network. It's a pretty complex app. So even though I might be able to send text messages and make calls, 2 bars, 1 bar, onX is going to take a long time to load up because it's trying to get all of that data. So what I do 9 times out of 10 is I just put my phone into airplane mode. That's going to do a couple things. First, it's going to automatically put onX into offline mode. So it pulls up those offline maps for you. And the biggest thing is it's going to save your battery life. That's one of the biggest draws on a cell phone battery. Basically, the 2 biggest are typically going to be your screen, lighting up that screen and searching for service. So if you can put your phone into airplane mode, and then as long as you're not just walking around with your phone screen out all the time, if you're using it kind of sparingly, you can make, especially new phones, my current phone's 3-4 years old, the battery's getting a little old. But newer phones, you can go a couple days easily. If you're kind of stingy with it, if it's cold, that's going to rob the battery too. Put it like an inside pocket, or put a hand warmer or something where you have the phone. But putting it in airplane mode, that's our recommendation for when you have no service or when you have kind of spotty service. That's going to ensure the best app performance and lengthen your battery life. A couple other quick things on offline maps. I'm going to show one thing here. You can remove an app from your device. So you see, I just did that to the one that's named name there. That was just another test one. Reasons you might do that: if you have a map saved of an area and you're not going back there for a couple of years, you can remove it to free up storage space on your device. So I did that. I mentioned my pronghorn hunt a few years ago. I haven't drawn a tag since. Hopefully I will this year. I just removed those. So to do that, tap on the ellipses on the right-hand side and hit remove from device. That's going to remember the outline and where you had that map, but it's going to delete all of the downloaded information. So that when I draw my pronghorn tag, hopefully this year, I can just go back in, tap that down arrow. That's going to start downloading that map again. So I don't have to go through all those steps I showed you previously of downloading a new map. You notice some of these maps also say update available. To update a map, I'm just going to tap on that green check mark next to it. That'll start that download process. I can also go all the way up to the top right corner of this menu, tap the ellipses, and then hit update all maps. And that'll update all of the maps you have saved. Why would I want to update a map? What's the big deal?
Yeah, so when those maps say update available, basically all that's telling you is that we've changed some portion of the data that's within that area. It might be something super small, like we updated a tax address on one private property. The big thing is those offline maps will still work when they say update available. So there's no real worry if they're saying that like on your way out to the field and you don't have time to update them. Just keep in mind that if you don't update them, it isn't going to be that latest information if we have made any changes. I know for myself, typically like 2 or 3 times through the hunting season, I'll sit down and update all my maps. But other than that, I usually don't worry about it because you'll often see that each week they're going to say update available just with how often that we're updating our data.
Yeah, I mean, a state like Montana, you might get one almost every day.
Oh, it's constant.
Where it'll update. So like Connor said, don't fret. If you're driving out, it's Saturday morning and it says update available, go hunting. Don't put off your hunt to go find some Wi-Fi at a coffee shop to update your maps. You're probably going to be fine. Just make sure you do it periodically throughout the hunting season. If you're starting hunting in September, go through in late August, early September sometime, update your maps. I do it at my desk. Obviously, I work for onX, so a little bit different situation, but I'll go through, Friday afternoon if I'm going hunting in the weekend, and I'll just update all my maps so that I know I have them for the weekend. So not something you have to do every single day, just whenever you think about it, whenever you get the chance. And we are, I've seen it in like employee settings. I don't know if it's out for customers, but we are working on like an automatic update where it can kind of update them in the background so you don't have to manually do it. That's going to be cool.
Sounds like it should be coming soon. I think they're testing with small groups right now.
Yep, I think we're doing some final testing on that. Yep. So last thing with offline maps, I should have mentioned it earlier. If you ever see a map like the one you see on the left side there with the red and white candy stripe or barber pole stripes around it, that's one of those maps that got removed from my device. Another way you could encounter this, if you have multiple devices, like right now I'm on a tablet. So let's say I like to use my tablet at home for scouting because it's a bigger screen and I save all my maps. Those don't automatically transfer to your phone. So you do have to go in manually and download them to each device. So if you save a bunch of maps on your tablet, when you open up your phone, it should give you, a lot of times will tell you there's downloaded maps that aren't on this device. You may get like a warning message like that. Pay attention to that because we would hate for you to download everything on your tablet, grab your phone, head out, not have them downloaded. So just something to double check. That green box, green means go. You got a downloaded map. If it's got those red boxes or those red stripes, that's this one here without the green circle next to it. If I tap on it, you see it's going to start downloading now.
And you may have mentioned this, but if you have multiple maps that need updated or need downloaded that are in that list, you can go through and click on multiple of them at a time. It's only going to do one download at a time, but it'll just schedule them all out. So that way I can sit down, click through the 10 maps that I'm going to need, and then just kind of forget about it for a while and let it do its own thing to download.
Yeah, yeah, you can queue them up. So awesome. So that's offline maps. Next, we're going to get to some of our map tools. So along that bottom menu bar in the center, there's a button that says Tools. I'm going to tap that. That opens up our toolbar. So the most common map tool that people use is waypoints. And a waypoint is just a simple way to mark a spot on the map for future reference. There's a couple different ways to mark a waypoint. When I'm out in the field, what I use is that button that says Mark My Location. So that's top center of the menu. I'm going to tap on that, and you can see there's a red X on my dot right where I'm sitting in Missoula, Montana. What I recommend you do is edit your waypoints and customize them, because 6 months from now, my location 3/20/24 at 5:35 p.m. isn't going to mean a heck of a lot to me. So this is one of those things where I like to tell people, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. When I first started onX, a lot of times, before I was working here, I would just mark a whole bunch of red X's and I didn't do anything. The next year, I have no idea what those mean. Did I mark a tree stand? Did I mark where I saw a deer? Did I mark a cool rock I found? What are they? So once you've got a waypoint marked, tap on it. That's going to pull up that menu. Then hit that orange edit button. From there, I give all my waypoints a name. That's the first thing. We're at the office. I'm going to name this one office. Next thing I do, I'm going to tap this more button here on the right side. That's going to let me choose a different waypoint icon. We've got something like 90 different icons. So you can scroll through. They're all listed alphabetically to find the ones you want. Once you're kind of practiced and you're familiar with some of those waypoints, you can also search for them. So if I'm looking for a turkey one, I can type in turkey. It's going to give me all of our turkey waypoints there. I'm looking for tree stand. I can just start typing that in and that'll start showing there. So that's a little bit of a way to kind of break down, like, most people aren't going to use all 90 of these. Very few people. I have probably 10 or 15 ones that I commonly use. For this one, we don't have an office waypoint, but the house one looks kind of like an office, so I'm going to use that one. Then I'm going to scroll down, and then I'm going to change the color of it. I'm just going to make it black for right now, and then I'm going to hit save. So you can see those changes took effect there. Coloration is one of the ways that I recommend people kind of organize their waypoints. That's a big question we get as well as, man, I got 1,000 waypoints. How do you organize them? There's a few different ways to do that. For me personally, it starts with the icons and the colors. Everybody does it a little bit differently. Personally, I group my icons by species. So my deer waypoints are all the standard kind of generic red that comes by default. I change the name and I change the icon, but I leave the color for my deer ones. My bear ones might be blue. My pronghorn might be purple. I like alliteration. Those are about the only 2 examples that I can actually do that on. Waterfowl are green because I like to hunt, greenhead mallards. That way, when I'm looking at the map, I've done it so long now that when I see a color waypoint, I automatically assume, or associate, it's a better word, I associate it with that species. Like, that's an elk waypoint, that's a deer waypoint, that's a turkey waypoint. I have some that I just kind of label as miscellaneous. So those are parking areas. Those are my house where I park the truck, the office at onX, things like that. Kind of points of interest that aren't really species specific. I think those are white. I know those are white on mine. That's one way people organize. Another way is to do it by year. So a lot of folks will say, all right, all of my 2023 waypoint icons are going to be purple. All of my 2024 ones are going to be blue. 2025 is going to be yellow. whatever makes sense to you. That's kind of neat. And I think that's what most people at the office do, or a lot of folks do. And that way you can tell this is an area I hunt year after year, and you can see that change over time. You can say, man, they were in here last year. This year, maybe they're in here again. Maybe they're in a different area. Just a way to keep track of that, so that I do sometimes when I go into a spot I hunt year after year, I do have to kind of remember, oh no, this waypoint was from 2 years ago, not this year. I will also do the same thing with spots I want to check out. A lot of people, when you're e-scouting, mine are all red of spots I haven't been to, but I want to check out. So right now I'm looking for spring bear spots. I'll make it red. When I go there, if it's a good spot and I want to go back there, I'll make it blue. So that's my bear color. Like, yep, this is a good glassing area. I want to go back. If it's not, I'll either delete it or I'll make it like black so that I know, hey, this spot's no good. Don't bother coming here. Don't waste the gas. Anything on waypoint customization?
Probably a little bit more high level, but on the waypoint itself, you can also add photos or notes. And like he had said, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. I'm really big on notes. So I'm going to add a ton of information on those waypoints, just so that way when I do come back a year later, I have more context to it than just that icon in the name. Kind of spurs that memory of why I wanted to have that place and why I need to go back there or why I don't.
Yeah, I put photos of like successful hunts.
Yeah.
So I have, deer pictures in there, deer I killed, or my dog with a grouse or something. And sometimes it's just kind of fun to go back, and it's kind of like a journal, and you remember that. So. All right, so we talked about mark my location. We talked about customizing waypoints. There's a few other ways to mark a waypoint. If I go back into my tools, just to the left of where it says mark my location, I'm going to tap the button that says add waypoint. That's a mistake. I'm going to move over here so that it's not on top of that other waypoint and hit add waypoint. It's going to put it right in the center of your map. Now, that might not be the spot I want it to be. You can still move a waypoint. I'm just tapping on the map right now with my finger, and you can see the waypoints moving around. If you want to be exact, zoom in more, you can put it exactly where you want it, right? And you can do this with any waypoint. If you have waypoints you've already placed, you want to change them later, all you have to do is go into that edit menu and then tap around to change the location of that. So no worries if you place one and save it, want to move it later, you can always do that. So again, recommend customize it. I'm just going to do that for right now. So that's how you place it, by going into the tools menu. I don't do that very much anymore. If I want to mark a spot that I'm not at, what I think one of the coolest ways to do it, let's say we're going up here. I'm just going to touch the map and hold my finger there. We call this a long press. So I'm touching the map, and after it's like 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds, a waypoint's going to appear right where I had my finger. That's what I do most of the time. It's just faster than tapping on tools and then tapping on mark a waypoint. Just hold my finger down. I can still move it, right? I can still tap around and get it exactly where I want, and then go through all the customization and hit save. If you accidentally do this, this is kind of the downside to this feature. We sometimes hear from people, man, I'm marking waypoints all over the place that I don't mean to. If you didn't mean to press your finger that long and mark a waypoint, don't hit the save button. Top left corner, just tap cancel and discard that waypoint. So again, I'm going to hold. Let's say I do want to save it, but a year from now, man, I don't need this waypoint anymore. Is another question we get. Man, how do I delete them? Tap on the waypoint. Along the bottom of your screen, there's a button that says delete. Hit delete, and it's gone. Last way to mark a waypoint is if I query the map. Let's do this on a private piece. We'll go right here. So let's say I want to remember a spot. I tap on the map. I find that information we talked about earlier. You see I have a green dot on my map where I tapped on it. Along the bottom of my menu there's a button that says add waypoint. It's going to put it right where I tapped the map previously. So that's kind of the fourth way to mark a waypoint. Again, customize it, do all that fun stuff so that you can remember why you saved it earlier. Anything I'm forgetting on waypoints?
I think we're pretty good there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Couple other tools. We'll run through these real quick. The line distance tool is handy if you need to measure a distance. So I went that a little fast. I'm going back into tools. Top left corner of that tools menu, the button says line distance. I tap on that. It's going to open up this menu. I have a crosshairs on my map. You can kind of see there. So I'm going to go up to this point and I'm going to tap that button that says drop point. That's the first point in my line. I want to see how far is it across to this point. I'm going to hit drop point. So that's going to give me that line distance. It's 796.2 yards. I can continue to add more if I want. You know, I can go in any direction. So a lot of times people will use this just to know, hey, what's the perimeter of my land? What's the perimeter of a field or something? You can also kind of use it a bit like a rangefinder. How far is it from this point to that point? And what I think is cool is once you save it, we give you that elevation profile. So you might use it for planning a stock. You might be looking at the map and say, do we want to go straight across? Do we want to bomb off this hill and go down and back up? You might look at it and say, doesn't seem too bad elevation wise. Let's do it. You might look at it and say, man, I don't really feel like dropping 2,000 feet and climbing 2,000 feet. Let's go around the head of the basin, and it's longer distance maybe, but less exertion because we're staying at the same elevation band. Another way to measure a line distance is with our 2-finger distance feature. It's not a listed tool on the map, but all you do is take 2 fingers, put them down on the map, and if I don't move them, it's going to give me the distance from where I have my 2 fingers on my tablet right now. If I release, it stays there for a couple seconds and then disappears. So for me, that has kind of replaced the line distance tool out in the field. Let's say I'm glassing right here from this glassing icon, and I see a bear. And how far away is that? 989 yards. I need to get closer. But at least I know, all right, it's round up to 1,000 yards. We got to knock off 600 or whatever my, I need to get to 400, whatever your distance is. So that's the line distance tool and the 2-finger measure tool as well. Final tool I want to talk about real quick is the area shape tool. Very similar to the line distance tool. Drop a point, drop a point, drop a point. Once you get 3 points, you see a polygon is formed. You can keep dropping points, however you want. And that's going to give you the acreage of that area you drew, as well as the perimeter of it. So a lot of guys who plant food plots like this, and they'll draw out where all their food plots are going. Then they know, all right, this is this many acres. I need to buy this much seed or this much fertilizer. You can also change the color of it like you can with waypoints. So I might change, the color of that, and I might color code by all of my corn fields are this color, my brassicas are this color. People do it with controlled burns as well. If they're on, maybe I burn on a 3-year cadence, and I burn a third of my property in different patchworks every 3 years. So these are the spots I'm going to burn this year. These are the spots I'm going to burn next year. These are the spots I burnt last year. Again, whatever makes sense to you, but that area shape tool can be super useful depending on your use case there. Last thing with markups, all of these can be shared as well. So if I want to go hunting with a buddy and we're going to go hunt, and we're going to glass from that glassing point there, all I'm going to do is tap on it. And this is the same whether it's a waypoint, an area shape, or a line distance tool. I tap on it, and then along the bottom, there's a button that says share. You have a couple options here. Most commonly, you're going to share it with a link. That is going to generate a link that you will text or email, but most commonly people text them to a hunting partner and say, hey, meet up here in the morning, or this is where we're going this afternoon. Make sure you download an offline map. And then they will receive that text message. There's a link for them to click on. Like if I was sharing it with Connor, he would get a text from me. He'd get the link, tap on it. It'll open it up in his onX app, ask if he wants to add it to his map. He can say yes or no. Also useful if you're like me, I hunt solo a lot. If you've got, a spouse or significant other or friend back home, you can text them, hey, this is where I'm going tonight. If I'm not, I expect to be out of the woods by 9 o'clock. If you don't hear from me by 10, that's where you should start the search from, or something like that. Or, maybe you are successful and you text somebody, hey, I got a big buck down. I need help packing. Meet here. Things like that.
One quick thing to note with that, if you do share that link with someone who doesn't have onX on their device, they can still view it. It's just going to prompt them to download the app first, get set up with a free trial account, and then they'd be able to see that the same as you would.
Correct. Newly released, we have this share nearby feature. So that would be if Connor and I are hunting together and there's no service and I want to send him a waypoint. It's airdropping. If you're familiar on iOS, like if you ever airdropped a picture to somebody, that's what we're doing there. So you do have to be pretty close. It's Bluetooth technology. Your two devices are connecting that way because there's no cell network. So that's a way you can do that. I don't know how far away you can be. Generally, you got to be pretty darn close though. So Android has a similar version. Right now, it's only same platform to same platform. So iOS to iOS or Android to Android. We can't share iOS to Android. Maybe that's something we can do in the future. Not certain on where the technology's at with that, but that's a pretty new feature. Might help fill a need for you if you're out where you don't have service and you need to send somebody a markup or a waypoint. I need to get rid of that button. It's always in the way.
It keeps moving back.
Yeah. Move back up. So it'll bother me again later. All right. The tracker is kind of another tool. It lives in its own tab along the bottom of the map. But if I go back to Missoula, tap on the tracker. Now this is how you can lay a breadcrumb trail everywhere you walk or drive. You hit start, and that tracker is going to start. Your location dot is going to turn red. We're sitting in an office. We're not moving. Not a whole lot's going to change. But if you were walking, you would see your dot move across the map and you would see a dotted line or a dashed line, I guess it is, behind you. So this is, again, another kind of safety feature. I'm just going to delete this right now because we don't really need it. Nice safety feature. If you're going to a new area, I'll park the truck. I'll mark a waypoint on the truck and then I'll start my tracker so that I can see everywhere that I went. Sometimes it's just fun to be like, man, I did 9 miles today, and I climbed this much elevation. Also useful for if I'm walking a field for pheasants, did I cover the areas I thought I covered? Like they used to say in football, the tape doesn't lie. It'll tell you everywhere that you walked. Blood trailing an animal, always turn my tracker on. Even if I know the animal went down, sometimes it's just cool to be like, this is exactly how far it ran, right? Also use it for marking tree stands. If I place a tree stand and we're parking the four-wheeler a quarter mile away or however far, I'm going to mark that route into the tree stand so that I can do it in the dark, and maybe I don't need to put up, where I grew up hunting, we have a lot of surveyor's tape, flagging tape, or those like reflective tacks. You don't really have to do that if you have a good track in there. You can also use it if I was going hunting with Connor and hey, you're coming to our hunting camp. I can share him all of the tree stands. I can also share him all of those tracks because maybe this tree stand, hey, you got to follow this track so that you don't go upwind of the bedding area and blow all the deer out. Or you've got to follow this route. Otherwise, you're going to be knee deep in swamp water. And, we're following the high road in there or the highland in there, something like that. Other use cases for tracker, I forgot.
That's pretty much all I use it for. Just one thought from like the troubleshooting side of things, being that customer service is most of what I think about. If you're on an Android phone, and I thought I saw this pop up in the chat, if you're using low power mode on an Android, it can wreak havoc on the tracker a bit. Airplane mode is just fine, but it's probably best to turn off that low power mode if you're on an Android. Just when you're running that tracker, it'll make sure that it's actually following your location even when that phone's turned off and in your pocket.
I just saw a question popped up, how to access the tracker. So one more time, if you go along the bottom of your map screen, there's a bunch of different icons. The farthest right one says tracker. You tap on that and then hit the start button. That'll start your tracker. Okay. I've been doing this quite a bit during the class, but I haven't explained what I'm doing. How to find your location and how to turn on the compass. So let's say you're having trouble. You're like, man, I don't know where I am. I don't have a blue dot anywhere. In the lower right-hand corner, there's a button that looks kind of like a crosshair. If you tap on that, that's going to bring the map back to your location. So you can see my blue dot is right in the center there. If you tap on that and it gives you like a warning or says something about location not enabled or location permission not granted, something along those lines, it's because you haven't granted onX the permission to access your, basically your GPS location on your phone. So you do need to do that. Not a super common thing, but we hear about it often enough. I felt like mentioning it. So one more time, I'm off looking somewhere else. I just want to get the map back to my location. Tap that button. There I am. And I forgot to mention it when we were talking about offline maps. That still works when you're offline. It's another question we get. Hey, can I see myself when I'm offline? Yep. Your location doesn't, we don't use cell towers to find your location. We use the GPS receiver in your device. So it's got the GPS chip in there, just like a handheld GPS does. If you've ever used one of those standalone units, works on the same system, connects to the satellites orbiting Earth, finds your location that way. So the other question we get is, how accurate is it? Civilian GPS is like 3 meters, I believe is what they regulate it to. You know, the military, they can get you down to like the spot. They don't allow us to have that accuracy. So we're going to be as accurate as basically possible. Every device is a little bit different. But generally, we're going to get you down to that about 3 meter mark. I found it's generally spot on. It's going to get you right there. If you need to be super accurate, you can turn your tracker on. That's kind of a hack. That's going to ping your location more often, because we're not sitting here and just beep, 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 pinging that location all the time, because that can run your battery down a bit. But if you do need to have that super accurate location at all times, turn your tracker on, can improve the accuracy of your location dot there. So that's a little hack there. Might run your battery down a little bit faster, so you might not want to do it all the time, but I'll leave that up to you. So I'm at my location. If I tap the button one more time, you see my map has rotated and I've got kind of a sight cone coming off of my dot. What this does is it shows whatever direction my tablet is facing is going to be up on the map instead of it being north like it normally is. So you can see me rotating my tablet and the map is rotating as well. So I use this if I'm riding along in a car, instead of having, oh, we're heading south, so what's left on the map is actually right, and doing those mental gymnastics, I'll just turn this on, and now I know I'm looking at the right side of the car. That's what's on the right side of my map, you know, and so on and so forth. Use this when I'm hiking too. If you need to know what fork of the trail to take, I just put it right there so I can follow it along. Same thing when I'm following an old track or something. I go into this mode. To exit this mode, I just tap that arrow in the lower right-hand corner and it rotates back to north being up. But when I was in that mode, that heads up mode, you might have noticed a third icon appeared in the lower right-hand corner. It looks like a compass rose. Let's tap on that. This is a relatively new feature for us. I think we came out with it last summer sometime. It might be a year already. It might have been last spring. But this is our compass mode. Along the top, you have where you can get kind of a compass bearing there. You see the degrees there, the declination. And then you've got a bit of a grid that extends out from your location. Along the left-hand side, you get some yardages there. So if you need to just know basically, hey, how far away is something? I can see, oh, you know, that building's 96 yards or close enough. If I need to get exact, again, we're going to the lower right-hand corner. Now there's a button there that looks kind of like a handheld laser rangefinder. I'm going to tap on that. You see it turned red now. I have this red line extending from my location dot. What this does is it kind of turns your app into a rangefinder. I can point my device at some object. Maybe it's an elk I see across a canyon and I want to know how far away it is. I'm just tapping, I touched my finger to that red line and I'm just dragging it up now. If I drag it all the way out, that's going to zoom out and allow me to draw a longer line. If I want to get closer, just do the opposite, drag it to the bottom. Let's go back up. Obviously we're in town here, so let's use our imagination. Let's say that elk I see is right there. I can use the imagery. I can tell, that's the only open meadow in the trees. I put that red dot there, and then I'm going to tap the waypoint icon kind of to the left. That's going to put a waypoint on that spot. So, few different use cases for this. My rangefinder personally doesn't range past about 500 yards on a good day. Usually it's around the 400s. I'm able to range, actual targets out in the field. If I want to know how far something away is, I'm certainly not going to shoot 1,200 yards, but at least I know that's how far away it is. Then I can start looking for other objectives to where, hey, I think we can get to this spot and we might be about 300 yards away. I can also do, I'm just going to hit done here. I can do my line distance tool. I probably have to exit this. I can look at it and say, well, this looks like it's 568, still too far. Maybe there's an objective here. Yeah, 357. Yeah, so now I know where we need to get to. Another useful example is after the shot. I mark the area. I did this last year. I shot a mule deer. It's like 200 and some yards. Wasn't a super long shot, but I did have to kind of drop down into this bottom and climb back up. And I'd marked the waypoint where the mule deer was standing. Before I even shot it, it was bedded down, so I had time to do that. Shot the mule deer. Looked like a good shot, felt like a good shot, but it kind of went behind the ridge and disappeared. So I didn't see exactly what happened. I had a waypoint of where that mule deer was standing when I shot. And everybody's probably had that experience. If you've hunted for any length of time, especially, big game hunting, you shoot a deer from a tree stand, you shoot an animal across the country, even across a sage flat or something. Once you get up there, everything looks different. It's hard to tell exactly, unless you have like a great landmark, like, man, it was under the only tree around for half a mile, which isn't often the case, right? You have a starting spot to start blood trailing from. Super handy, and then you know exactly right where to start. Anything I'm forgetting on that?
No, that's pretty much it for that one.
Awesome. All right, cruising along here. We are over an hour already. Couple more features I want to talk about, then we'll get to the Q&A and the giveaway. I'm going to zoom out here and I'm going to go up to some Forest Service land here. So we're going back to that lower right-hand corner. We're going to talk about base maps now. This button on mine, if you look close, it says HYB and 2D. That means hybrid 2D map. If I tap that button, that's where you can change your base map. And what I mean by that is you can have it be a satellite map, you can have it be a topographic map, or you can have it be a hybrid map. So the satellite, a lot of us are probably familiar with that, similar to like a Google Earth image or something. It's satellite imagery. As I zoom in, you can get more detail and you can see the rocks and the trees and everything. Topo map. You're used to getting old school maps from your local BLM office or Forest Service or something. A lot of times you might have gotten a topographic map. Easier to see the waterways. So you can see some of the lakes and creeks here on that topo map where they're not really drawn out on the satellite map. So that's kind of a hack, especially for you folks in arid areas. If you're looking for, hey, where are some of these ponds? Where are some of these creeks and stuff at? That topo or the hybrid, you can see those creeks a lot more easily when you go into those base maps. Personally, I use the hybrid most of the time because it gives me the best of both worlds. I can see the contours of the land, I can see the elevation change, but I can also see, you know, where the trees are, where the open areas are. I can see what the terrain looks like. When I'm scouting for September elk and I'm looking for those north facing slopes with benches on them, a lot of times I use the topo map. Same thing, we're looking for south facing slopes for bears in the spring. I will go in to the topo and I'll mark a bunch of south facing areas that I think I'm able to glass. Then I'll flip over to the hybrid and see, are they all trees or is there some openings there where a bear might come out and feed on grass? So again, it's up to you. Use what works for you. If you don't ever use topo, that's fine. Don't turn it on, right?
Good reminder with those three as well. They're all saved in an offline map.
Mhm.
So you can switch between those three in the field, just depending on what you need.
Awesome. I can also go into 3D mode. If I tap on 3D, you can see that here. I'm just going to use 2 fingers. That's how I can kind of pan up and down. I can still zoom in with my fingers like I did before. I can pan the map around. There's kind of a saying among some people that topo lies. You might look at an area and be like, it's not that steep. It's always steeper than it looks. I've never gone to an area and be like, oh, that's less steep than I thought it was. It's almost always steeper. So that 3D can kind of give you a look and you can see, oh man, that is, you know, that is a pretty steep basin wall there. I'm not climbing that. Maybe I'll go fishing here, but I'm not climbing up there. And I can get back to 2D just by tapping that as well. Couple other options for imagery in this. I'm going to zoom out. The first one I want to talk about, I'm going to move over to Wisconsin, is our leaf off imagery. Now these 2 options are both elite only options. So the first one, the leaf off, kind of what it sounds like. It'll show you a picture of the map in the winter after the leaves have fallen. So I can toggle that off and on. You can see the change there. We don't have this for every state just yet. I think we have 15 states.
Yep.
I think except for Kansas, they're all east of the Mississippi.
Yeah, that'd be the only one.
So which kind of makes sense. That's where our biggest deciduous forests are, you know, in North America mostly. So we don't have it for every state. Like I said, we want to get it for as many states as we can and as many states where that makes sense. Personally, in Montana, I'm probably not using leaf off imagery all that much. We do have some aspens and cottonwoods, especially down in the bottoms, but we're a lot of pine, spruce, and fir. So it's not going to make a big difference for me. But that might be an option for you. If we don't have it in your state, like we don't for Minnesota, it's going to look like that. We try to make it as obvious as possible that we don't have it for Minnesota yet. I'm sure we're going to try to. Some of it is dependent on if that imagery is available from our provider and things like that. So leaf off imagery is one option. I'm going to get back to my location quickly to show you recent imagery. This tablet never wants to load up right away. Let's do this. We'll go back to Wisconsin. We'll show you the recent imagery. So recent imagery, this tablet is finicky today. So I'm not going to be able to demo that. Gotta love technology, right? It's like when you're trying to print a term paper 5 minutes before class and the printer doesn't want to work. Never rely on it. So recent imagery is going to be a lower detailed imagery that is taken every 2 weeks. So it's not as crisp of imagery because it's taken by satellites. That's the trade-off, right? It's updated more frequently, not as high of resolution. So what's that useful for? Number of different reasons you might use that. If there's logging in your area and you want to see, say you're scouting for turkeys coming up, hey man, I know they were logging, but where exactly did they cut down all these trees? There was an area I roosted birds last year that's been clear cut. Probably not going to roost many birds there this year. You could also check on fires and see, hey, where's this wildfire burned? Or maybe, again, turkeys, they love burns, prescribed burns. What areas have been burned? What's that looking like? The Intermountain West, I'm going to be heading out spring bear hunting. Hopefully, as soon as I fill my turkey tags. What's the snow level looking like? Can I get my truck up there? Am I going to be post holing through 2 feet of snow? Save myself some gas from driving up there. In the fall, check the crop harvest, check wetland conditions. How much water is in this slough? Is it bone dry? Probably not going to go duck hunting there, right? What else do you use recent imagery for?
That's pretty much it for me. Watching snow levels in the spring and then duck hunting, checking to see if there's water in sloughs.
Now it finally loaded up. I can give you an example of what it looks like. So we can see some of the snow there, right? As I zoom in, you notice it is a little bit fuzzy, but I can tell, this area, it's going to be a while before that snow melts, even with how warm it's been. I think we're getting more snow this week.
We're supposed to get snow tomorrow.
As much as I want some warm weather, we need the moisture. So you can see on here in the lower left-hand corner, it gives me the date range of when that imagery was taken. I can also go back in time. So that's kind of cool. I can go back to, I think we're coming up on a year since we released this feature. So we have imagery back to last like March or April. So you can scroll back if you want and see, what things looked like at the time.
One good thing to mention as well, because we were talking about how like hybrid and topo are saved offline. That leaf off and that recent imagery, at least for now, are more designed for research purposes. So neither of those are going to be saved offline in your offline maps. You'll still have our normal high res imagery though. That's all taken with airplanes. So that's going to be what's saved in all those offline maps.
All right, for the last kind of feature here, I'm going to jump over to the onX web map. I know we had a couple questions on how do I get this on my computer. So while that's pulling up, with any onX membership, with any onX account, you have access both to the mobile version as well as the desktop or laptop version on a computer. To get there, all you have to do is go to onxmaps.com. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a login button. Enter the same email and password you used on your mobile device to set your account up and get logged in. That'll get you logged in here. And this is also going to sync up. So if I refresh this, all of those waypoints we just marked show on this platform. Close out of that, but hey, we do have more upcoming masterclasses. We'll talk about that in a bit. So I can see I just marked this on my tablet. Here it is on my computer, and it goes both ways. I do a lot of e-scouting from my laptop because it's a bigger screen. And then any waypoints I mark, any markups I make, that transfers to my tablet. Okay, the same isn't said for layers. If you turn a layer on your phone, it's not going to automatically turn on your computer and vice versa. So you do have to, be cognizant of that you might have some different layers turned on different platforms. One question we get is, can I search for like GPS coordinates? Yes, you can. One way to do that is in the upper left-hand corner here, there's a search bar. You might have something that looks like this. You might have your map layers turned on. You can leave them turned on. You can turn them off. Doesn't matter. But I'm going to go into search. And we recommend searching in decimal format. So you might have latitude and longitude in UTM or degrees, minutes, seconds. Search works best with decimal. So you can convert that if you have it from another program. There's all kinds of online converters that will do that for you. Your onX by default is going to be in decimal. So most of you, that's probably what you're using anyways. Let's say I want to go to, I'm just going to go and pick a random spot. It's not random. I use this example all the time. Your first one is got to be a positive number, probably between 0 and 90. If it's a negative number, that's going to put you in the southern hemisphere. Your second number has to be negative. So you have to put that dash or that minus sign before it. Otherwise, you're going to end up on the other side of the world. So I'm going to type in 45 minus 100. You can put commas in there. You don't have to. I would recommend leaving them out. Sometimes that can mess with things. But then I'm going to click the result that it shows me, and it brings me right to this spot. Now, from a previous class, I had marked a waypoint here. This is in South Dakota. So if you have GPS coordinates from a buddy or from an old GPS unit, or you get them from some other program and you want to find that spot on onX, plug them in, add a waypoint on that spot. There you, excuse me, there you have that saved. I'm gonna drink some water quick because I've been talking for over an hour.
Yeah. And with that, anything that you search, you can always add a waypoint. It's going to give you that same icon on the map. So it's that little red circle just below the waypoint that has like an eye in it. Yeah, if you shift it off slightly, it might be a bit easier to see.
Yeah, that's a little bit easier. So let's move a little west.
There you go.
There we are. Oh, that's right by Yellowstone. That was by accident. It's one of those Bob Ross happy little accidents. So again, I got this menu, hit add waypoint, places the waypoint there for me. You can I'm going to discard this one. You can also search for a landmark. You can search by town name. You can search by county. So if I wanted to go to Glacier National Park, you can see the options here below me. I'll click that first one. It's going to bring me up to Glacier National Park. You can also search by a landowner name. So at the top, you see I have location selected. I'm going to click over to private land. And now I can search for James Smith, which I heard earlier was, I think that's the most common name in America. So if I hit search, I get a whole bunch of results. But you see that my results are mostly in Montana and Idaho. This search is going to prioritize results that are close to the area of the map you're looking at. So we're in northern Montana here, Glacier National Park. It's prioritizing the James Smiths that are close to that area. If I was looking for a James Smith in Georgia, I'll move my map over to Georgia. Get as close as you can. If you're looking for a person's name and you know, hey, they're in North Georgia versus South Georgia, try to zoom in on North Georgia. If you know a middle initial or a middle name, the more you can help the search out, the more information you can give it. It's kind of like Google, right? It's going to give you better results there. You can also search if you know how many acres they have. If you're like, oh man, this person has 100 acres. I can filter out the results based on how many acres they own. Might not be helpful in every case, but that's something that you can do. And then you see it removed a lot of those small landowners there. So that might be helpful if you're looking for this person's maybe a rancher and they maybe live in town, but they have a bunch of ranch land outside of town or something like that. And you're looking for their section that they own outside of town and not their 1 acre plot that they have in town. You can move this slider to do that. Questions? Anything I forgot on that?
That is pretty much it.
Awesome.
Definitely try and zoom in on the general area for a search, especially with landowner. It's going to just get you a lot more accurate results. If you're zoomed out too far or looking at a whole state, it's going to be tough to find that property you're looking for.
Right. All right. I'm going to stop sharing here for a moment and go back to my presentation. I am going to have Tito in the back throw the giveaway link in the chat. We're giving away some onX turkey t-shirts here. So this link right here will be in the chat for you. Click on that. It'll take you to where you can fill out your name, your email, your shipping address, and your shirt size. We're giving away 10 of these bad boys. I'll send an email out to all the winners tomorrow. So if you don't hear from me, you didn't win, unfortunately. If you do get an email from me, we'll get your shirt sent out either tomorrow or the next day. Just depends when fulfillment can get that to you, and then you'll have it later this week or early next week. So get entered for that. If you're watching this recording after the fact, the giveaway is no longer open. It does end at midnight tonight, but we do these at just about every class. So 10 to future one, we're always giving away some onX swag there. So. Also, if you don't currently have an onX Hunt membership, we've got a 30% discount for you. You use the promo code app101. You do have to go to our website to use that. You can either go to that link on the screen there or go to onxmaps.com. You can use that discount. It's good for your first membership. Doesn't work for renewals, unfortunately. Just for that first year. And also it cannot be used in the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. They don't really accept promo codes, so it has to be used on our website. If you do have any trouble with that, shoot us an email, help@onxmaps.com. Connor or one of our other customer support folks will be happy to get that applied for you and get you up and running. Couple other ways, if you're looking for further education, our website again has a lot of tutorials. We've been adding some video tutorials on there, as well as our YouTube channel. We have a lot of demos there. Talked about customer support. I'm biased, but I think our customer support is some of the best, not only in the outdoor industry, but in, I don't know how many app companies you can call up on the phone and talk to somebody who's sitting in Montana, and they're going to take, as much time as you need to get you taken care of. They're first class. And then more onX Masterclasses. We do these about every week, sometimes twice a week. We do 101s just about every month. We do different office hours, kind of ask me anything type classes with a couple of our engineers. We also have topic specific classes. It's big game tag application season. If you're a Western hunter or interested in hunting the West, we do a whole series of those with the folks from the Huntin' Fool. They are experts on that. They break down all the different draws, the different point systems, the different costs. Hey, this is what we recommend. If you're looking for XYZ experience, they're great at those. We have a couple more of those coming up this year, as well as a couple of turkey specific classes. And those turkey ones are sweet because we're giving away $3,000 worth of gear at each one of those classes. We had one last week. We have 2 more coming up first week of April. So we're giving away Weatherby shotguns, Primos blinds, Woodhaven calls, gift cards to Old Tom, Camel clothing. We've got some Vortex optics in there, a lot of cool stuff. And finally, let's get to some Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing. I think Tito sent us over some questions that were commonly asked. Ooh, looks like there was an issue with the giveaway link. I will fix the giveaway right now. My apologies on that. Good call out, Tito. Give me one moment to get logged in, because I think it was redirecting everybody to a different page. All right, so I'm gonna have Tito throw the giveaway link in the chat one more time. It's working now. And I'll leave that. We'll extend the hours of that. If anybody does have trouble, we'll leave it go for a few hours in the morning once business hours start. Apologies for that. Technology. Even though I work for a tech company,
it never works when you want to.
Never works when you want to. All right. So while you're getting signed up for that giveaway, whose link now works. Question on how to use wind direction on waypoints. Good question. I'm going to do it on my tablet here. It's a little bit easier. I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me. So this is a little bit beyond a 101, but it's a super cool feature. Let me get out of here. Let me get to onX. There we go. So you can mark wind direction on a waypoint. So I'm going to let that pull up on the screen there. So I have a waypoint marked. Let's actually get over. I'm going to go over to my tree stand waypoint here. That's right in the middle of an alley. So I'm going to tap on the waypoint. That's going to bring up this menu here that we've seen before. If I open that up, you see there's a couple options for waypoint tools. I'll tap on wind direction, and that lets me choose from 2 different options. I can have it show the current wind. I'm going to apply that. Of course, technology not working. This one's offline right now. Eventually, that will show me what the current wind is at that spot. The more powerful option, let's see if I toggle this off and on. Still going to show offline. Man, we are just hitting it out of the park today. If I go back in there, I can have it set to the optimal wind. I think this is the more powerful feature. So let's say for this tree stand, I only want to hunt it on a north wind. I'm going to tap north, northeast, northwest. Those are the good winds here. I'm going to hit apply. Normally, when things are working, that will highlight that stand. It'll show the wind direction and it'll be red, yellow, or green. If it's a north wind or northwest or northeast, it'll show green because that's a good wind for that stand. If it's a south wind, it'll be red because that's a bad wind for that stand. If it's east, it'll show yellow because that's a marginal wind. Maybe I still want to hunt it. It's not perfect, but I think I heard a guy say one time, a lot of big bucks are killed on okay winds. You know, they're not always killed when you've got the perfect wind. You sometimes have to risk it a little bit. So that's a cool way, you know, if you have a bunch marked, here's a couple that are working. So here's some that I'd marked previously. I know that one, it's a west wind, it's okay for this waypoint. Maybe I still want to hunt it. Helps you take some of the, you know, if you have a bunch of different tree stands, like, man, where should I hunt? You got kind of that paralysis by analysis. I can take a quick glance and say, all right, I may have a dozen tree stand options, but only 3 of them have a good wind. Now I only have to choose between 3 instead of 12.
But while you're still on that map, take that second question, the GovLands one. Our government lands on the app are going to show up in a number of different colors. If you want an actual like legend on how to see all of those, jump over to our website, and down at the bottom, there's a tab for our support center. In there, you'll be able to search for legends, and that can bring that up. The biggest thing to remember, though, is you can always just click on the map to figure out what something is. So if you aren't sure, so like right there on the top of Sentinel, if you click on it, you'll be able to see it's university land. So it's going to show up in that bit of like a brownish orange color. Whereas as you get back further, that green's going to be your Forest Service land or national forests.
Yep, that's really the best way. Hey, I don't know what this color is. Just tap on it. That'll tell you. Looks like some people are still having issues with that giveaway link. It may be it's a caching issue. So you may have to either go to a different browser or kind of clear your browser history or do a refresh. Sometimes it'll still like remember that other page we had in there, redirecting it. So again, apologies on that, 100% my fault. You may have to copy and paste that, use a different browser, or an incognito browser will work. You can go into like that private or incognito. That'll let you enter the giveaway there. Let's see. Looks like, you know, we're coming up on an hour and a half here. That's kind of it for the 101 questions, that level of question there. Again, if you do have other questions, shoot us an email, check out our online help center. All of that good stuff is there for you. And like I said, we do these 101s every month. They're typically the same type of content we try to cover. Everyone's a little bit different because we get off on different tangents. Also, keep an eye out for our onX deep dives. That's a new series we started this year where we go into one specific aspect of the app. The last one we did, I spent almost an hour talking just about waypoints. So we covered some of the same stuff we covered here, but we went more deep into the wind on a waypoint, the radius, navigating to waypoints, things like that. So you can go back, if you go to that Masterclass sign up page we talked about earlier, down at the bottom, we link to our previous class playlist on YouTube. That's where you can find all of the old classes that we upload there, and then keep your eyes peeled for a future one. So in closing, just want to one more time, sorry about the snafu with the giveaway. If you're still not able to get there, jot that link down somewhere, use an incognito browser or clear your browser history. That'll get you up and running there. And I'll send an email to all the winners tomorrow. And with that, I'll tell everybody good night. Thanks for joining us and hope to see you on a future masterclass.